What's this? Could it be? Is this brand new footage of Breath of the Wild 2? Not quite. What you're seeing here is Genshin Impact, a free-to-play game from Chinese developer miHoYo. And just by looking at this footage, it seems kind of familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, ever since this game was announced last year, people were quick to call out similarities to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. With that in mind, is Genshin Impact a Breath of the Wild clone, or is it something more? Well, let's take a look at what makes the two games similar, and there's quite a few things to look at here. The first thing you'll notice in Genshin Impact is the open world itself, set in a magical realm called Teyvat. While the layout is completely original, it features many of the same geographical attributes as Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, with lush green pastures, large mountain ranges, and pits filled with enemies. Obviously, Breath of the Wild didn't invent green pastures, large mountain ranges, and pits filled with enemies, but the art style of Genshin Impact makes those locations look strikingly similar to the ones in Hyrule. Landmarks such as ruins and enemy base camps look almost like the same exact models. Makes me wonder if they actually are. Anyway, part of what made Breath of the Wild fun was getting to those locations, and you could do this by means of climbing, gliding, shield surfing, rafting, riding a horse, and riding a motorcycle, like a true adventurer. Genshin Impact only offers climbing and gliding, which is good enough because who needs a horse anyway? Joking aside, there are fast travel points everywhere like in Breath of the Wild, and going to activate them offers additional incentive to travel the world. And if there are any features from Breath of the Wild that every open world game should have from now on, it's climbing and gliding. Genshin Impact utilizes these traversal tools as well as you'd expect, but it gets bonus points for allowing you to climb in the rain. Take that, Zelda! In a sense, the game does nail the feeling of vastness within its open world in the same way Breath of the Wild did. If you ever just want to take in the glorious sights, you can find a nearby peak and just gaze in wonder at the massive land in front of you. But what sort of challenges and foes can we expect to find in this land? Let's find out. Much like Hyrule, the realm of Genshin Impact has no shortage of quests, side quests, and challenges to stumble upon. Most of these puzzles are simple, such as escorting a spirit to a nearby statue, lighting a few torches, zapping a few elemental stones, and much more. Basically, they're the Korok seed puzzles, except instead of rewarding you with the quote-unquote seeds, you do get treasure in the form of currency and items used to upgrade your character's abilities and weapons. Weapons you will use to fight off some tough bad guys. And these also look quite familiar. It looks like they even use the same exact exclamation points whenever they're surprised. Seriously, same color and everything. Though the combat of Genshin Impact is way different than Breath of the Wild's, the enemies have strangely similar looks and behaviors. Some of them may look original at first, that is until you defeat them and they remind you of the Yiga clan. At least they're not obsessed with bananas. And speaking of bananas, you can even cook in this game, but the method is a bit different. Rather than just throwing a bunch of random ingredients in a pot and seeing what sticks, you have to find the recipes and the required ingredients before you're able to cook them. Then it turns into a timing-based minigame that's impossible to mess up. Meals and ingredients will of course heal you, but also give you special abilities and revive downed teammates, which you're going to want whenever you enter these domains. Now you might think these are the game's version of shrines, but there are some significant differences to them. These domains focus on combat more than puzzle solving, having you go through rooms to fight enemies. They are larger than Breath of the Wild's shrines, and you mainly go through them during quests. Even though they aren't too much like shrines, occasionally they end with you fighting a gigantic mechanism that looks suspiciously like a guardian. How peculiar. So yes, while Genshin Impact does shamelessly take a ton of inspiration from Breath of the Wild, calling these two games the same wouldn't be entirely accurate. You see, Breath of the Wild is first and foremost an adventure game with RPG elements, but Genshin Impact is way more of an RPG. Here you control a party of characters you can swap between in an instant, and they all have unique powers and weapons you'll need to fight certain enemies and solve puzzles. You'll acquire plenty of them throughout the game's story, and you can acquire more through the gacha system. It's a free-to-play game after all, but I haven't yet felt my progress being hindered from not buying more characters. Each character starts at level 1, and you can upgrade them by just naturally playing or using experience materials to speed up the process. You can find these materials easily by exploring the open world and finding treasure chests. Another thing this game has that Breath of the Wild doesn't is a clear leveling system. Parts of the map will not open up unless you're at a certain adventure rank, and the same goes for the story quests as well. In a way, this is kind of smart, because it encourages you to explore and find secrets throughout the world. However, if you really want to see how these two games differ, look no further than the combat system. Breath of the Wild is pretty straightforward, and it allows you to get creative with runes, arrows, and the environment. With Genshin Impact, each character is only allowed to equip one weapon, so you'll have to quickly swap between them depending on your situation. And luckily, none of these weapons break. Thank you. The combat is also determined by elements, and some characters have powers of earth, wind, fire, water, frost, lightning, and nature. Naturally, fire would work better against ice-type enemies, water against fire, you get the picture. You can use fire to burn shields off of enemies, frost to freeze those that are wet, along with many more combinations. It's a cool feature that makes the combat enjoyable in its own unique way. That said, it doesn't feel as immediate or as responsive as Breath of the Wild's combat. It's more focused on racking up damage and using the powers appropriate for each battle. Sorry, there's no flurry rush in this game. So yes, Genshin Impact takes a lot from Breath of the Wild, but it's not an all-out clone. Even though it looks similar, playing it feels quite a bit different. The similarities both games have basically begin and end with the open world and exploration, which aren't the two aspects at the forefront of Genshin Impact. It's more of an RPG with a greater emphasis on story and combat rather than exploration and puzzles. Anyone who plays this game after Breath of the Wild may find themselves overwhelmed by the sheer amount of features and tutorials it throws at you within the first few hours, as compared to Breath of the Wild's more laissez-faire approach. But seasoned players of RPGs may find this experience worthwhile, with its deep character customization, fleshed out RPG mechanics, and complex story. The question remains, is Genshin Impact a good game to play while waiting for Breath of the Wild 2? From my experience, it doesn't exactly scratch that Zelda itch. Exploring in Breath of the Wild felt meaningful, and you would find some fascinating tools or people on your quest to defeat Ganon. Your quest in Genshin Impact is to find your lost twin, but there are so many other main quests before that to the point where it doesn't feel like you have a definitive goal. In addition, most of the items and secrets you find are the same things: enhancement gems, XP materials, and so on. Not to say any of this is bad, it's just different from Breath of the Wild, which is why this may not be a game to hold you over until the sequel comes out, but it might still be worth trying in its own right. And luckily, if you'd like to find out for yourself, this game is free. You can download it on PS4, Android, iOS, or PC through the game's website. And yes, there is a Switch port being planned at some point. Maybe we'll see some exclusive Link and Zelda outfits. Who knows? If you've already played Genshin Impact, let us know what you thought of it in the comments section. Did you love it? Did you not love it? And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for more features as well as gaming news, previews, and reviews. Until next time, bye!